Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I was going to do a sit down chit chat with you all and talk to you about my birthing experience with my first daughter, Olivia. So I thought it would be something interesting to talk about before I start documenting the twin pregnancy, the last couple of weeks that I have left of it. So Olivia's birth story, I'll give you a little bit of background first. I was 21 when I fell pregnant with Olivia, and it was my first pregnancy. When I found out I was pregnant, for whatever reason, I really wanted to go with a natural, low intervention birth or labor. So I enrolled myself into a natural birthing section of our hospital. So this meant that the midwives and the doctors there did agree with mothers wanting a low intervention birth. And I was set on having no epidural, no pain relief, no nothing. There was no particular reason that I wanted to do that. It was just something that I believed in at that particular point in time. So the first 20 weeks of my pregnancy went really smoothly. Everything was fine other than horrendous morning sickness, which is just the worst thing in the entire world. Other than that, everything was fine. At my 20-week morphology scan, I found out that I had a low-lying placenta. So I think the technical term for it is Placenta Previa or Previa, and it's where the placenta actually lies over the top of your cervix. So if that happens, it means the baby can't actually obviously exit vaginally, therefore leading to a C-section. So when I got this news, I remember feeling so upset and so incredibly ripped off because I thought that I was going to have a C-section. My midwife kept telling me that the likelihood of the placenta moving once Olivia grew more was very likely. So the heavier she got, the more likely it was that it would move out of the way and there would be enough opening there for me to still deliver naturally. So for the first, I think it was about maybe 6 to 8 weeks after I was diagnosed with the low-lying placenta, nothing had happened. There was a few symptoms and side effects that I had to look out for that could occur with placenta previa or the low-lying placenta. One of those main ones was that you bleed and that you spot. So I needed to look out obviously for that each time that I went to the bathroom. I was a little bit worried each time that I was going to find something. So for the first 6 to 8 weeks, I didn't. I also didn't experience any pain. She was moving fine, so on and so forth. Anyway, at 28 weeks, and it was literally my birthday when this happened, we were just heading out to go out to dinner, I had a bleed. Now, it wasn't a substantial bleed by any means, but it was still a bleed. So I rang my midwife and she said to come into the birthing center straight away. So I went in there and a bedside ultrasound was performed and it showed that I was bleeding somewhat from the placenta. So I was admitted overnight and kept for observation. By the time I'd actually reached the hospital, I had stopped bleeding and everything was fine. It's just obviously once you start bleeding in a pregnancy, everyone sort of starts to freak out. So following that, she still kept telling me, my midwife that is, she still kept assuring me you were going to be able to deliver vaginally. You still have a number of weeks to go until we make the call that you can't. So let's keep going. At 32 weeks, I had another bleed. Now, once I hit 32 weeks, and I think it was from the weight of Olivia, I continued to spot, I would like to call it, rather than bleed. I spotted several times after 32 weeks, and each time that I bled, I was sent into the hospital. A speculum was usually performed just to check my cervix. An ultrasound was performed to check Olivia. Sometimes I got to go home, and then sometimes I was admitted to stay overnight. I think it was about 34 weeks, and I had bled maybe 5 or 6 times that my midwife said, we think it's time that you go and see an obstetrician at the hospital who deals with these sort of issues within pregnancy, and let's get a second opinion on what he thinks and to see if he thinks that you can deliver vaginally or if you need to proceed with a C-section. By this point in the pregnancy, I feel as though I was ready to have a C-section. I was scared, and every time that I went into the hospital, I was worried that something was going to happen to Olivia. I think that I had just come to terms with the fact that I wasn't going to be able to deliver her naturally anymore, and none of that really mattered to me anymore. I just wanted her out, and I wanted her safe, and I wanted to know that everything was going to be fine. When we went to the obstetrician, he said that he thought I should go with a C-section, mostly because I was having all these bleeds. Some were even unexplained. Some they didn't think were coming from the placenta. They just didn't know. Sometimes little vessels can apparently rupture from the weight of the baby in the cervix. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I remember my obstetrician telling me at the time. Anyway, so we booked me in for a C-section at 38 weeks. So I was kind of excited, kind of nervous. Obviously, I felt as though my right as a mother to have these babies naturally had been taken from me. But any mum that's gone through this will know that you just want your baby here safe, and that's all that matters. So I was booked in for 38 weeks, all was good. At about 35 weeks or 36 weeks, I had another bleed, and I was admitted to hospital overnight because the bleed was bigger than the ones previously. When I was admitted that night, my obstetrician ordered that I have the steroid injections to help Olivia's lung growth speed up in the case that I had to deliver her, obviously via C-section, if I suffered a massive hemorrhage from the low-lying placenta, which I think is something else that can occur from that, which is pretty scary. Anyway, so I had the steroid injections for Olivia, which they give you one and then they give you another one exactly 12 hours later. So that was super fun. It was nice to know that there was something in my body helping my baby though. So that was really great. At 37 weeks, my midwife ordered me to have an internal ultrasound just to see if by some weird chance the placenta had moved. At this point during the pregnancy, my midwife and I just started not to see eye to eye. She was really pushing for me to have this baby naturally, even though she knew that there was very little chance that that was going to happen. So we started to collide a little bit by this point because my heart was set on having this C-section, and I was a little unsure as to why she kept having me rescanned and rechecked, because I just knew that it wasn't going to be possible. So she sent me for an internal ultrasound, and it showed that my placenta had moved. So the sonographer that was performing the C-section said to me, your placenta is well out of the way. You should proceed with a natural or vaginal birth. And that particular day, I have never felt so crappy about myself and my decision as a mother. They were saying things to me like, because you are so young, you shouldn't be having a C-section. They'd seen women that had opted for a C-section because it's the easy way out, which any woman that's had a C-section knows that is definitely not the case at all. They were saying things to me like, if I tried to go back for my second baby, that there would be a chance that I would be forced into having a C-section again. All these horrible things that they were pushing me in the direction to try and deliver this baby naturally. So call it mother's intuition, but I just felt as though the right way to go was to have this C-section, and that the safest way that my baby was going to be born was to have her by a C-section. Anyway, we spoke to my midwife about what was going on, and we decided, my husband and I, that it was best that she no longer care for me anymore. The particular center that I was in meant that she was my designated midwife, and I didn't see anybody else. I just saw her. So we said to her at this point in time, we just think it's best that I stick to talking to my obstetrician, and that is that. So that's exactly what we did. After this point, so after all that drama had happened, I was finally at 38 weeks and I was going into the hospital to have Olivia, which was super exciting. And any woman that's been booked in for a C-section knows how strange it is when you wake up and you know that today is the day that you deliver your baby that you've been waiting 10 months to meet. So we headed to the hospital, and I remember just being so nervous and so excited, and I was so sick of being pregnant and all this horrible stuff that had happened during this pregnancy that I think put a dampener on my experience being pregnant for the first time. Anyway, I was going to meet my baby, and that was just the greatest thing in the entire universe. So we got to the hospital, and it was, I think I was scheduled for 2 p.m, but it got pushed back because there was an emergency C-section placed in front of me. So we got there at 9, and I got gowned up and I sat in the waiting room ready to be called in, which was the longest time in the world to wait when you're so excited to meet your baby. You also can't eat, which I found really hard because I have the biggest appetite when I am pregnant. So that was a major struggle for me. Anyway, so it got to the point where we were finally called in, and I was so excited. I had all my family there, and our beautiful stepdaughter Gabriella was sitting in the waiting room with my parents and her nan, and waiting to meet her baby sister for the first time. We got called in, and they let you and your husband, well, at this particular hospital, me and my husband went into like a pre-op room, and they spoke to me about the operation and what was going to occur. After that point, they made Damien sit, and they took me into a room just before the theatre. So I don't even know what you would call that. It was a room right next to the operating theatre. So in there, they spoke to me again about the epidural, what was going to occur, and what kind of pain relief that I wanted to have following the procedure. So at the time, they offered to have morphine put into my epidural, which I said no to. I have terrible tolerance to pain relief. So I said to them, I would just prefer to take oral pain relief or put pain relief into my drip so that I can monitor it a little bit more closely, because once it's in the epidural, they said that it's really hard to get the nausea under control if it starts to get really bad. So I opted for that. So I had the drip put in, and they started pumping the pain relief through that, obviously during surgery, I think it was, maybe after. Anyway, I'll get to that. So they did all of that. They put everything in, they put all the needles in, which is like, I hate needles. So that was super horrible. And you also don't have your husband there, and you don't have your support partner, whoever it is in that room, you don't have them with you. It's just a room full of doctors and nurses and students, and it is so overwhelming. So I was wheeled into the operating theatre, which is so strange. I don't know what I pictured, but it was not that. And there was about 20 people in the room, and it was really bright. I don't know. It's definitely not what I pictured. So once I got in there, they started prepping me for the epidural, and thankfully there was a lovely male nurse who held my hand and let me sort of lean against him. For anyone that's had an epidural, you literally have to roll your back as much as you can, which is so hard when you have a basketball attached to you. So I rolled forward, and they put the epidural in. I remember feeling the anesthetic that they put in, the numbing, whatever it is that comes out of the needle. I remember feeling that, and it stung, and it really takes your breath away. But the epidural itself, I only remember feeling a pressure. Yeah, I don't remember feeling pain, but I remember it feeling very bizarre, and like I remember feeling shaky and a little bit nauseous, and it must have been my blood pressure dropping, because a few women have said that that was something that they felt after they had had the epidural inserted. So after that, I was laid down onto the operating table. I think I was actually moved from the bed that I was on onto the operating theatre table, and I remember seeing that they brought Damien in, and I was so excited. So they brought him in, and they did a quick check of my feeling. I think they ran an ice pack up the side of my body, I think from memory, right underneath my armpit, and asked me what the sensation was. I remember like feeling it, but not quite. It was so strange, and I remember being so scared that I was going to feel something once he started, because I could sort of feel this ice pack, but not really. So then he started asking me questions like, can you feel this? Can you feel this? And I remember feeling like little tugs or little pinches, but I couldn't feel anything. And I said, no. And now I look back, and it was him actually opening me up. So once he had me opened, things started to go a little bit pear-shaped. I don't know if this is like something that occurs frequently in a C-section, but I'm yet to meet a woman that went through this. Similar things have happened, but like the series of events after this were just, I don't know what happened with my C-section, but it didn't go to plan. So Olivia was wedged in my belly nice and tight. She did not want to come out. And they kept telling me to count down from 10 or count down from 20. And at one point, I think it was count down from 30 and you're going to meet your baby. So I kept doing this. I had Damien on one side of me and I had the anaesthetist on the other side of me. So they were both helping me breathe and helping me stay calm, because I remember that I just wasn't in a good headspace when this was going on. So they kept telling me to count down, and by the third time he said, she's stuck, like just give us a minute, we're gonna figure this out. And he was telling me, explaining to me that he was going to use forceps to get her out because she was in there so tight. So when they used the forceps, I remember feeling the biggest pressure on my chest. Like it was like someone had just dropped a ton of bricks on top of me and I could not breathe. Apparently feeling pressure when they pull the baby out is normal, but this was just horrendous. Like I honestly thought that someone had dropped a ton of bricks on top of my chest. It was horrible. And then I heard that they'd pulled her out, and all I could remember was trying to hear her cry, and I couldn't hear him talking, and I couldn't hear the anaesthetist talking, and I couldn't hear Damien's voice. I just wanted to hear her cry, and it felt like the longest time in the world, but I heard her cry, and it was the most beautiful thing I have ever heard. So when they pulled her out, I sent Damien over there straight away to go with her and watch her be cleaned up and then bring her to me for skin on skin, which anyone after a C-section will, I don't know, but I personally found it really hard to do the skin on skin. You sort of have like a sheet up to here and you have like drips hanging out of you. Your arms are to either side of you. You can't really move. It's really hard. And I was in, at this point, this is when things started to go weird, but I was in a little bit of pain. So oh, one really important thing, going back a step. When they opened me up, the first thing my surgeon said to me was, thank God you had this done because your placenta is so low. So moving forward now, I hemorrhaged quite badly during surgery. And they told me that after, when I was being wheeled out into recovery, they did say that you lost a fair bit of blood, but everything was under control. Once I got into recovery and I had Olivia and we were trying to do some skin on skin, I was feeling horrible, and nurses kept coming in and checking me and pulling pads out from underneath me that were saturated. When you've just given birth, I don't know what you expect to see, but you definitely don't expect, I didn't expect to see that. And it was bucket loads of blood that I was looking at. And I'm trying to stay calm and I'm trying to feed my baby and tell myself that everything's okay, but I just knew that something wasn't right. And trying to breastfeed her was incredibly painful. Yeah, it was a horrible sensation at that point in time. So after recovery, I was wheeled into my room, and at this point, everything went horrible. I could not hold Olivia. I was in so much pain. I couldn't really talk. I remember I was crying. I felt absolutely horrible. Anyway, my parents and Damien got my surgeon in straight away and said, there is something not right, something isn't going okay, what is going on? So the first thing was, I was losing so much blood and it wasn't really being monitored that closely. They gave me a drug that helps your uterus contract a little bit faster, and once that was put in, it pretty much slowed down to normal post-birth bleeding, which was fantastic. But the main problem was whoever had put my pain relief in hadn't put it in properly. So I had gone from feeling nothing to feeling everything in a really short period of time, and the drip was actually leaking pain relief out my arm. So that was not a good experience. This isn't going to happen to everybody. This just happens to me because that is my luck. Yeah, so I felt pretty terrible for probably the first 6 hours, I think. They did give me not only pain relief through a drip, but they gave me oral pain relief. I think by that point, after I had taken a couple of doses, that I was just too, well, really I was a space cadet, to be honest. So for the first 24 hours, really, Damien looked after Olivia. I held her as much as I could, but I was just, they had to just get my pain under control as fast as they could and to monitor the bleeding. Once they got the bleeding under control and my pain relief under control, all was good in my world again. So I was in hospital for a total of 3 nights and 4 days with Olivia. On the last day that I was released, they did let me know that I was slightly anemic, probably from the blood loss that I had following surgery, and then for the couple of hours after when it wasn't stabilized. I was told, to take iron tablets, and that would definitely assist in the iron deficiency. So that's what I did, and to be honest, that's pretty much my birth story. I feel like I have just like rabbited on, but I felt like that was a really important story to share with you all. One, it was my first pregnancy and it just did not go to plan at all. And I feel like when you're a new mum, you have this big plan and you want to stick to it, and it's horrible when things veer off track, but it happens to the best of us, and it happens to all of us mums, and you just got to get through it and know that there's other women out there that have gone through the exact same thing as you, and there's always a support network. But yeah, so now that that's all of my chest, I am going to move on my next video talking to you guys about my twin pregnancy, and that's where this next chapter of the channel is going to go, other than vlogging with my 2 beautiful girls. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this, and I hope I haven't bored you too much. Please leave a comment below if you want me to answer any questions that you may have, or leave a comment for something else that I can talk to you guys about. But I really enjoyed sitting down and chit-chatting with you all about this, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Like and subscribe. Bye.